Welcome to this Q&A with Minimata. This is such a fantastic, timely film, and I am so pleased to welcome today's guests. We have writer-director Andrew Levitas and producer and actor Johnny Depp. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you.
Whenever I have people as accomplished as the two of you, and that is not often, I actually like to go back to the beginning and ask, what was sort of your first job in the entertainment industry? You know, did you start off in a mailroom, or, you know, Andrew, you've had several careers. I'm curious, I think did you start as an actor?
Well, only accidentally. You know, I was I was painting. Yeah, exactly. That's why we get along. You know, I was painting and sculpting and writing and making sort of experimental films since I was a really young kid, and I found my way accidentally on a movie set, which then turned into a random job on a television show, and those things just sort of continued. I learned in the early days where there's an opportunity to learn, don't say no.
Wow. I think that probably really helps you with actors. That might be one of the reasons you're so good with actors. You've done it.
I guess so. I think maybe just that I listen, and I've been really fortunate that I've worked with actors like Johnny and the rest of this cast in particular that maybe identify, and I don't want to give, you know, I don't want to put identifiers on Johnny, but that identify as artists first and as creative people, and that could have been doing 50 different, you know, disciplines or gone down different paths, but ultimately found that the best way of expression for them, or the path that jumped out at them, was acting. And I think those are the people that I connect with. I mean, on our cast and crew, half the cast and crew were painters. You know, everybody here was basically a painter. And so oftentimes, you know, that's our language. And Johnny and I are often talking in terms of, you know, literary references and art references and music references versus really film ones. So I think that's more of the connective piece.
Cool. And Johnny, for you, what was your first job as an actor?
First job was A Nightmare on Elm Street, the first Nightmare on Elm Street in, let's say, '84. That was Wes Craven, for some reason, cast me as one of the group in that film, and that was the first time I'd ever acted. That was the first time I'd ever been on a film set. Certainly, I'd only been on one film set prior. That was when I was a child, watching William Shatner make some movie in Florida. So that was, yeah.
What a great one to start with. And I actually live very close to the Elm Street house in West Hollywood. Yeah. We go there every Halloween.
Cool. It's nice to drive by now and again and see that. You know.
So congratulations on a beautiful movie. I'd love to start at the beginning with Johnny, because I think you've been familiar with Eugene Smith's work for some time. At what point did you know you wanted to tell, you know, not just his story, but specifically about his time in Minimata?
I had been somewhat fascinated by Eugene Smith for many years, and for the first thing that really, I mean, certainly his photographs were beyond intriguing, you know, and then you read about his experiences in the Second World War and such. And it was a wonderful photographer who's since made her exit, Mary Ellen Mark, knew him, and I asked her about him. She said that he introduced himself as W. Eugene Smith, and she said, "What does the W stand for?" And he said, "Wonderful." And I thought that answer explained him in an instant, you know, kind of, you know, curmudgeonly, you know, definitely had his slings and arrows, you know, the thing he had to drag things around, Eugene Smith. So he's a fascinating character. On top of that, then you learn about the horrors in Minimata and this crotchety old mean bastard going there to try and help these people and falling in love with these people and certainly his wife in the process. Fascinating and not I mean, this story should be known worldwide. These mistakes continue all over the planet, and they should be looked at. There should be someone looking into these things. So I feel so happy that we got to tell the story as the story needed to be told by the truth. You know?
I'm embarrassed to say that I did not know the story. I obviously knew the famous photograph of the bath, but
Yes.
you know, assumed that everything had worked out, and you know that is not the case. And I feel really guilty. I didn't know better.
Well, it's wild. It's his language. I mean, which was imagery, is almost more powerful than the word in this instance. That's why I mean, back then, a photo essay, the opportunity for a photo essay on opening this thing up was huge, and he came out of obscurity and went back into obscurity. You know?
And the thing, just to add on to that, that I think we both have found so dynamic is there was a personality like Johnny describes, but an inner light and hope for mankind and the ability to see past the absolute worst of what people do to each other, of how we treat our earth, of how we treat each other, of how we've set up our societies, and still see that sort of and express through the work and capture the moments where you could see the love and the absolute best of humanity. And so whereas there are so many there seem to be in today's world a view of just it's over, like it's done, it's doom and gloom, it's the end, there's nothing you can do, there's no goodness. And then there's the other side, which is let's just put our head in the sand and pretend it's not there. And in Gene's case, and I think hopefully in our case with this film, and certainly in the other work that I do, and this is something that's very important to me, I think your goal is to inspire and offer a path through, and also illustrate how beautiful it is to be human, and how beautiful and how wonderful we can be when we look after each other. And that's never gone. And even in our most sort of villainous type characters, that kernel of humanity still exists. And I think that that's the thing that we all need to mine and try to bring forward for younger people today, and already made up their minds about these issues.
I think a lot, exactly what you're saying is true. You know, the Gene Smith that was the well-worn sidearm of you know, schooled in the battles of the Second World War, coming up the ranks, the only way I believe that what Eugene Smith is very close, very akin to what Hunter Thompson was in the sense of, there's a great quote in the beginning of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas that Hunter used by Dr. Johnson, and it says, "He who makes a beast of himself gets rid of the pain of being a man." So I think that Gene Smith, Hunter Thompson, those, that ilk, that caliber, they are hyper sensitive, hyper sensitive, but must protect themselves by putting layer upon layer upon layer to try to cover themselves and keep that warmth in, without, you know, losing themselves to the, as William Saroyan put it, the shame and degradation of the world. You know, they layer themselves.
I absolutely understand.
And they're also not the story, right? I mean, what's so special and one of the,
they're the eye.
They're the eye.
They're the
and
eye.
that was special about, you know, when John and I first started talking about making this film, the thing that was, you know, one of the things that was most exciting was the idea that, you know, Eugene Smith is not the story, right? And so Johnny was going to allow us to create a narrative, to create an approach to this film where we could sort of teach the language of photography, teach the language of cinema, of photography through cinema. In the beginning of our film, understand Gene's eye, understand Gene's poetic nature, understand his worldview, and then take the camera away from him and let Gene observe for us and understand what it means. And so, you know, when you look at the, you know, excuse me for saying this, Johnny, but when you look at the incredibly sort of subtle and powerful work that Johnny does in the film, what's remarkable is that as we as we move deeper into the film, you know, the community who are the real heroes of this film, the people that were fighting on the ground, come to the forefront, and we understand more of them and can take a deeper, more complex and poetic view, and one that we can see ourselves in, because Gene, and Johnny as Gene, moves back. It's a really unusual, you know, type of approach, and one that was really exciting, and I think consistent with the work that Smith did. And obviously our hope, and, you know, to fill the shoes of someone as meaningful, who moved society and moved the world forward and touched so many lives through his work. You know, certainly we had millions of frames to do this with, and Gene had, you know, just a few. But to sort of capture the essence of that has been really, was really one of the goals, and was quite glad that we were able to do it.
It's such a beautiful performance. And Johnny, I'm not sure, maybe you don't like being complimented, because you kind of hid when Andrew complimented you. So if you want to go off screen for a minute, I'm just going to talk about how great you are.
It's very kind.
No, it's an incredibly moving performance. And you've obviously played real people before, but somebody like Gene Smith, he's so important, and his work is so important to so many people. Did you feel an extra responsibility taking on him and taking on this story?
Absolutely, without question. It always, when you're portraying someone who either exists or existed, you owe, no matter who they are, you owe a debt to that person to play them responsibly, and represent them responsibly. You know, even you know, certainly, you know, I include James Bulger, you know, Whitey Bulger in that crowd, because one thing, you know, that people, Whitey Bulger or James Bulger he didn't wake up every morning and try and figure out just how evil he could be. It's not the case, you know. It's a you know, far more complicated human being. But yeah, no, you feel a huge responsibility to these people, because, like, people that I've played who are who did exist and are still alive, like Joe Pistone, Donnie Brasco, he was with me every day. So, I mean, yeah, I felt an enormous responsibility with him. But with Gene Smith, it went to great respect for him, but also to Eileen and what she'd carried on all these years. Um, it's astonishing, the strength of the woman. It's admirable, incredibly admirable what what she brought to the table, which was everything, no holds barred, and so I felt a great debt and a great responsibility to Eileen as well.
And for both of you, where did you even begin with your research? Because you have Eugene's work, obviously, and I believe Eileen was there to help you.
Yeah, so
Yes.
there was an enormous amount of documentary footage, of Eileen,
Recording.
recordings. Like I did an incredible amount of digging with Eileen, where she basically told me her deepest, darkest secrets that she probably never shared with anyone, but was so giving and understood that a film like this has the chance to make a difference, has a chance to really touch people, has a chance to change people's view on the world, has a chance to inspire. And so she was willing to give even more of herself. And she's given quite a lot in her life. But she was willing to give even more of herself to try to see that happen. And so, by the way, were the people of Minamata, the existing patients, the existing victims, the existing relatives, parents of deceased, who'd lost their children. And, I went and visited and sat with them and had ongoing dialogues with them. And they gave me such truth, real, deep honesty and transparency, because they too felt that, if there was a chance to stop the next Minamata, they had a responsibility to say something, and to give us all of the tools that they had to help us in any way they could. And then beyond that, from the photography standpoint and from understanding what was happening in the scenes. So when we built our sets, they're almost identical replicas of the locations. They were three-dimensional spaces, 360-degree spaces. We were shooting 25-minute takes. Our actors, they were living. Johnny was living. The rest of the actors were living as these characters in these environments. I mean, this was it was really organic in that way, and there was so much information that we were able to take on and then work through, that we were able to show you authentic moments, real truth, real honesty from the actors, from the world they're in. And also because all of the original images of Gene's, the contact sheets, the original negatives, were all donated to the Center for Creative Photography in Arizona. We also had all of the images that Gene took before and after the master shots that became so iconic, like Tomoko in the bath. And so we were able to understand what was happening in the space and the progression and really get inside that thing. And that's why I think Johnny is so convincing on the photography side, and why so many photographers in particular have gravitated to this film and become so passionate about it, because we had the insight, we had the information that allowed us to present that and really look for that essential truth. And so it was quite a deep dive in that way. And also we had a crew as well as our cast that was so deeply committed to the work that it didn't feel like we were making a film. It felt like we were reliving